Hello, and welcome to HeadWise, the videocast and podcast of the National Headache Foundation. I'm Dr. Lindsay Weitzel. I'm the founder of Migraine Nation, and I have a history of chronic and daily migraine that began at the age of 4. Today, we are lucky to have Dr. Lauren Natbony. Hello, Dr. Natbony. How are you today?
Hi, good, thank you.
We are so lucky to have her as our guest. She is a board certified neurologist and headache specialist, excuse me. She is also the founder of Integrative Headache Medicine of New York. She is an assistant and clinical professor of neurology in the Division of Headache and Facial Pain at Mount Sinai's Icahn School of Medicine. We have had her on previously, and I love her viewpoints. They are a little bit different than some of the people that we talk to. And so I love to hear everything she has to say. And so we asked her back on. So our topic today is all things sleep, and especially for people with migraine and other headache disorders. So we have some questions that are going to be a little different than what you hear on some other educational videos. So I hope that they hit the nail on the head for those of you that have trouble sleeping. So Dr. Natbony, this might sound silly, but why do we sleep at all? Why can't we be like vampires and just live life awake all the time?
Because that would be more fun.
Yeah.
But sleep is essential for our survival. Just like eating, breathing, we need to sleep. And sleep really allows for our brain and our cells to repair, to consolidate memories, to restore our energy, and really to heal. So without it, our entire system just can't function. We actually can't live without sleep.
Okay. So why is it helpful in particular for those of us with migraine?
So, as everybody probably knows, irregular sleep or poor sleep can trigger migraine, and good sleep can help prevent migraine. So,
Mhm.
sleep regulates our neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, which are involved in migraine pathways. And then during sleep, sort of we need that time for our brain to sort of re-regulate. I look at it as like this is our repair and our refresh time. And if our brain doesn't get that, it is more likely to trigger migraine.
Okay. So many of us have devices that monitor our sleep now, give us feedback on things like REM sleep, deep sleep, light sleep. What are the difference between these things? Because it occurred to me that a lot of the time I'm like, yeah, they say that's good, I don't have that. They say that's good, I don't have that, but I don't know the details of why it's important.
I think that's such a great question because so many of us have all of these things that we're tracking and measuring, but we don't really know what they mean. So,
Uh-huh.
love this question. And I like to go over with my patients too. So, light sleep is basically that transition phase when we start relaxing, like we're just trying to like get into our sleep mode, and we actually spend most of the night here. So, most of our time is spent in light sleep, but it's not really the most restorative stage of sleep. The stage of sleep that's the most restorative is deep sleep.
Mhm.
So, deep sleep is really crucial for our memory, our immune function. It's really important for migraine prevention because it reduces inflammation and stress. So, if you're really, really stressed, you want to try to get more deep sleep.
Okay.
And REM sleep actually makes up the least amount of our sleep. And this is the dreaming stage. So if you ever wake up from a dream, you're most likely in REM. And this is really the most critical for cognitive function, for memory, for emotional regulation. We know that dysregulations in REM, especially like if you're getting broken sleep, is linked to an increased migraine frequency. So really,
Okay.
when we're thinking about migraine, we're looking at the time spent in deep sleep and REM sleep and consistent deep sleep and REM sleep. So it's really
Okay.
important to stay in the stages.
Okay. So, how many hours of sleep are we supposed to get at night? I feel like this is controversial. I know everyone loves that number 8, but is the recommendation the same for everyone? I used to think I was getting a lot more sleep than I was, and then I got a device and realized that I was lying there awake at least 2 hours of the night at some point. So, this is an interesting question, I think.
So the general recommendation is 7 to 9 hours for adults. But there are some super sleepers. Like I actually have a friend who's a super sleeper who literally only needs 4 or 5 hours. And then on the
Hmm.
other spectrum, there are people who really just need more sleep. So I think it really does vary based on your age, your genetics, your health condition. I feel like people with migraine kind of need more rest. So it might
Right.
not be like more sleep, but just more rest in general. But we know that
Hmm.
both undersleeping and oversleeping can both be migraine triggers. But I don't really like to focus as much on the hours as on the consistency because I feel like the number of hours can vary and we might still feel fine, but having sleep disruption and going to bed at wildly different times, waking up at different times, dysregulates our melatonin, our hormone production. So I find that
Mhm.
trying to focus on the regularity of sleep is more important than the number of hours.
Okay. So I'm going to ask specifically about some things that people with migraine focus on when it comes to sleep, because as someone who has had migraine my whole life, sleep does not come easy to me at all. I can't even talk about sleep with a straight face sometimes, depending on how things are going. So I'm going to let you talk about this because I am not a sleep expert. I barely know how to do it. So let's just say, does regular exercise help us sleep?
So it really does. And I feel like I know everyone promotes exercise for like everything,
Uh-huh.
but exercise does help improve our quality of sleep overall. It promotes deeper sleep, it helps regulate our circadian rhythms. But I would say intense workouts closer to sleep can be overstimulating, so it's
Mm.
best to avoid that. But regular exercise, regular routine is helpful. Yes.
Okay. So how about the timing of our meals? There is this thing with me that everyone thinks is crazy, but I grew up in an Italian family. We'd eat huge dinners, right? And I know that's not a good thing. So talk to us about timing of meals and sleep.
So I actually started experimenting with this myself. So I'm sort of nerdy and I like to know the impacts of things. So everyone always said, don't eat late at night. And I was like, why? So
Uh-huh.
I actually started tracking my sleep and realized if I eat later at night, especially sugary foods, carbs, my sleep cycles were disrupted. I don't go into deep sleep or REM until much later in the night. So it's
Mm.
more stimulating to the nervous system. So eating earlier before bed, or if you have to eat something protein light before bed is okay, but it really can interfere with your ability to go into the right stages of sleep at the right time. So this
Okay.
is something that we can monitor for ourselves and see if that has an impact.
Okay, well, let's talk about some of the things we take to help us sleep. Now, I know a lot of people with migraine like to talk about melatonin. So let's start with that. Do you think it can be helpful?
So melatonin, there have been studies showing that melatonin 3 milligrams have been helpful for migraine prevention,
Mm-hmm.
in addition to potentially helping with sleep. But I think we really have to say that melatonin is not a sleep aid. And I think
Okay.
this is the biggest point I want to drive home is that melatonin is our body's natural sleep hormone. It is not meant to help us get groggy to fall asleep. So it
Okay.
helps regulate our circadian rhythm, which is our natural sleep-wake cycle. So the role of melatonin really is for phase shifts. For example, jet lag when you're changing time zones and you want to re-regulate your
Mm-hmm.
cycle to the new time zone. It is for people who, let's say, their natural body wants to go to sleep at 3 a.m., but life is telling them they have to go to bed at 11 p.m. We use it
Mm-hmm.
to phase shift back their sleep to a more acceptable pattern. But it is not really meant to be a sleep aid. Sure, taking it in the moment might make you feel a little bit groggy, but it is really not a sleep aid. So I just want to put it that it's fine to take, but at the same time, it's not something that we should be dependent on to make us go to sleep.
Okay. So this I've always thought was interesting. I've seen it at Walgreens, etc. What about some of the over-the-counter sleep medicines? One of the newest ones I've seen lately is ZzzQuil Pain, which I think they basically took ZzzQuil, which is an over-the-counter sleep medicine, and maybe added some Tylenol to it, I think, if I remember right. So we can get some of these things over the counter if we're in pain and want to sleep. So what do you think these are helpful?
So first, I like to say the combination products
Mm-hmm.
I don't love because we can't like titrate to what we each individually need. Yes, some of them
Mm-hmm.
might be fine, but if we're just looking to sleep and don't have pain, I would say using something just for sleep. If we have pain, using
Mm-hmm.
something just for pain. But overall, most over-the-counter sleep aids have diphenhydramine, which is like Benadryl. And what
Mm-hmm.
this is doing is it is sedating. So I want to point out the difference between being sedated versus something that is promoting sleep. So if you're sedated, and there are lots of things that could be sedating,
Mm-hmm.
it makes you sleep, but you're not going into the right stages of sleep. So it doesn't improve your sleep quality and actually can cause drowsiness the next day and rebound insomnia. So using diphenhydramine short term, sure, 1, 2 nights, but I see huge problems when it comes to using it long term. It also sort of dysregulates the autonomic nervous system, which interferes with, again, our parasympathetic, sympathetic states and our ability to sort of self-regulate. So,
Okay.
again, short term, fine. Long term, not a sleep aid.
Okay. So I wanted to switch to something completely different here because I have seen things you've written on this, and it's way more important than people without migraine understand. We have neck pain when we have migraine, so many of us, and pillows are a big deal. People used to make so much fun of how huge my suitcase was everywhere I went because I used to, before we had the pillows that we could scrunch up, I had a neck pillow, I swear to God, was this big. So talk to us about neck pillows because I know that you've put a lot of thought into this.
I probably own more pillows than anybody else. My husband cannot fit in the bed because the entire side is made up lined. I think I have like 18 pillows. And I'm always switching between them depending on how my neck feels. So,
Uh-huh.
what I've learned in my many years of pillows is that
Hmm.
measuring the height basically of your head and neck ratio and then making sure the pillow aligns so you have the right loft and the right height is
Hmm.
the most important thing because otherwise your head is sagging or it's up too high, which can put strain on the neck. So
Now, can I interrupt? Is this like laying on your back, laying on your side, or do
that
you
was the
need to get
next
the
thing I was
right
going to
pillow so
say.
you can do both?
The
Okay.
right pillow for the right way you sleep. So a side
Okay.
sleeper is going to be very different than a back sleeper versus a stomach
Hmm.
sleeper. So I'm a side sleeper. And my biggest issue is this curve, sort of right here, fitting perfectly in the pillow, and then what to do with my arm.
Hmm.
So sometimes the pillow, it will have too much curvature, some of them on this area, and then it will sort of dip down and I feel like it's like just too much. Others will just be like really squishy. So it's the right
Right.
ratio. And so I actually go and measure sort of the different pillows and how they also sustain night after night. So some will be the right height, but then gradually go down. So I
Right.
think two main things to take away, and there's a lot more I can go through on pillows, is know your sleep type. You should say, are you a side sleeper, a back sleeper, a stomach sleeper, or all of them? Because if you're
Hmm.
going to be in multiple positions, the pillow has to be able to accommodate multiple positions.
Right.
And also knowing basically the height of the pillow that you need. Are you a low height, a standard height? Do you need something even higher than the
Right.
standard height? And then narrowing down pillows based on that. And then you have the memory foam, there's water pillows, there's all different types of pillows. I
Water
think
pillows. Wow.
I know. So
Okay.
I tried the water
You're
pillows.
getting
And
deep.
yeah.
Okay.
So there's, I really literally have tried everything. The self-adjustable fill pillow. I think finding which type of pillow is most comfortable to sleep on. Everyone has a little bit of a preference and then
Hmm.
narrowing it down from there. I feel like there should be a pillow expo where you can just try like every
Oh,
single
wow.
pillow.
That would be
Like that would be
amazing.
super
Yeah.
helpful. Or you can come to my house where I literally have all. But yeah.
So basically, I think that the one of the messages to get across is if you are spending a lot of time and money and energy trying to find the right pillow because you have migraine and neck pain, you're not the only one. You're not crazy. It's probably a good idea to spend some time on that.
Yeah, and I feel like I spend a lot of time talking about it with my patients, but there's not just like one right pillow, and I think that's where it gets frustrating. It's that it
Hmm.
really is a trial and error process.
Okay.
But I'm with you. I get it. The pain is real.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask the questions people don't necessarily get about sleep on a lot of our education and headache videos. First, I'm going to ask though, we didn't really go into prescription medications for sleep. Can you let us know, do you think this is something that migraine patients should look into if they really can't sleep?
So I really do. I actually think that correct prescription medications, not
Mm-hmm.
ones that are just making us drowsy, but actually
Mm-hmm.
that are sleep promoting are vital. And I think a lot of times seeing a sleep doctor or seeing a sleep doctor that's really well versed in insomnia, because a lot of them do sleep apnea or other areas, but finding a medication that helps you fall asleep, stay asleep, it can be extremely difficult, but if it helps, it puts you into the right stages of sleep. So it actually promotes correct sleep. So I would say if you are having trouble sleeping, obviously treating migraine obviously can be helpful. There are some medications that can do a little bit of dual benefit, so definitely exploring that. But the
Okay.
key really is finding something that can help short term that isn't interrupting and making the sleep worse over time, and then
Mm-hmm.
identifying if there is an underlying sleep issue and tailor treatment to that issue.
Okay. So I'm going to have two more questions that I think are pretty tailored to us and are practical, and hopefully we'll get some tools. So let's say I'm a person with migraine and I'm probably exhausted because I get a lot of migraine, and I go to bed and I've been laying there for a significant period of time and I'm still wide awake even though I'm exhausted. What do I do?
Love this question. It happens to all of us. It happens to me.
It's never
So
happened to me before.
never, never. Last night. So I think the first thing is try to stay calm and don't get overly frustrated. Because I think, first of all, our whole bodies tend to tense up. Why can't I fall asleep? And that sort of
Mhm.
revs up our sympathetics, our fight and flight, and
Mhm.
it makes it even harder. So I would say if you're still awake after 20 to 30 minutes, get up. Do not keep laying
Mhm.
there. Get up and do something that is calming, slightly boring, and make sure it's in dim lighting. So you can read a book, you can listen to a podcast, you could
Not
do some,
this one. This one's not boring.
not this one, my favorite one. So there are some really great podcasts out there that are boring stories
Hmm.
that actually help me personally to fall asleep. So you can look into those. You want to avoid screens, so blue light, you don't want to go turn the TV on. I feel like so many people are like, I can't sleep, I turn the TV on.
Hmm.
Yeah, you're just going to be suppressing melatonin. Same thing with your phone. So
Right.
devices away, trying to do something in dim light that is calming and boring.
Yeah, pet
But
the dog. I wake up my poor dog. My poor dog doesn't get to sleep either because I wake her up and pet her.
oh my dog sleeps in my bed and not good for sleep hygiene, but I can't.
You've got
But
pillows, the husband and the dog.
there's no room. I
How
feel like
big
I'm
is
gonna
this
fall
bed?
off. I
Okay.
literally don't know how I don't fall out of the bed. So I have a lot of work
Okay.
to do on my own. But I also
Okay.
always point out that why does this happen? Like, even though you might have migraine and you're exhausted, if this keeps happening, think to yourself, is my body just not ready to go to sleep? A lot of times
Hmm.
there's a mismatch between what our body wants and what our brain knows it should do. So
Hmm.
that mismatch is not going to work. So
Right.
there are ways to train the brain and the body to realign, and that's a
Hmm.
method called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia.
Right.
It goes through that basically to realign things, and it's just basically your internal clock just might not be aligned. So don't always be like this is going to be a lifelong problem. What do I do? Like, and get really anxious about it because there are methods and ways to go about it. But I'd say first thing is don't just lay there, get up.
Okay. So then I'm going to ask it differently in case the advice is different. What if I'm one of those people who wakes up at, let's say, 1 a.m. every morning, can't sleep for 2 hours? What's your recommendation for that person? Not me. Never happens to me. But that person.
So it's going to be similar, but there are a few other things. So my first
Hmm.
inclination whenever that happens is I pick up my phone and I'm like, what time is it? What time is
Hmm.
it? Like, how many
Hmm.
more hours do I have to sleep? 'Cause I'm always like, oh my God, like if I wake up now, I'm not going to get all of my sleep. So I
Yeah.
think do not look at the clock, do not pick up your phone, do not get into that like anticipatory anxiety phase that I do. So please learn from my
Hmm.
mistakes. Again, get out of bed after 20 to 30 minutes if you're not able to fall back asleep. Similar tips to before, deep breathing, relaxation, boring podcast. But I think if this is happening one off, you can sort of write it off. But a lot of times this happens repeatedly. And I tend to find that there are things that can perpetuate interrupted sleep and waking up. So a lot of time
Hmm.
I'll wake up when I'm too hot. So I think making sure that the room is a cool temperature, you want it to be cold. You want to be huddled under those blankets because our
Right.
body during the night can wake up due to temperature dysregulation. Making
Hmm.
sure we're looking at our caffeine cutoff time. Like, don't be drinking caffeine too late. Could it be
Okay.
that you're waking up if it's like at the same time every night? Like, is your blood sugar dropping? Is there something happening?
Oh.
Sleep. You have to go to the bathroom. So there are a lot of things
Hmm.
that can disrupt sleep. So it's not just going to be a blanket, like this is what you do. It's if you notice it's happening, we need to talk about it and identify are there patterns? Sometimes there's not, but a lot of times we can find things and sort of help.
So, is there anything else that you would like to add to this topic before we go today?
So, very quickly, just some practical tips for sleep and migraine. So, most important, keeping a consistent schedule. Don't nap, or if you're going to nap, make sure it's less than 30 minutes because that will decrease
Okay.
your sleep drive. Make sure your sleep environment is cool, quiet, and calm. So,
Hmm.
let's start with those. I feel like those are hard, I think, for a lot of us anyway. I feel like sleep is probably the most comorbid thing that I see with migraine and one of the hardest things to treat. So I empathize. I'm with you. So the more we can educate, the more we can educate on sleep and try to find ways to promote better sleep, I think will really help migraine in the end.
All right. Well, this has been really fun and very informative, and I hope everyone got something out of this. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and thank you, Dr. Natbony, for being here today. Please join us again on our next episode of HeadWise. Bye-bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.